Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. That's ziprecruiter.com/zip. ziprecruiter.com/zip.
You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, just like any other time, we have another amazing show for y'all today. Today, we have our special guest. His name is Bill McKenna. He's the author of The Only Lesson, the founder of the Cognomovement, and he is so worth being on the show today. He has a ton of experience, a lot of amazing stories that include a near-death skydiving experience that we're going to have to learn about that. But yet he's also about a spiritual awakening and decades-long journey into neuroscience, energy, and transformation. We're going to learn everything, not just about his amazing career, but the amazing resources he has. He has an amazing gift that we're going to be sharing with our audience a little bit later into the show. But before we do all that, I want to pause here and say to Bill, thank you for being on the show today, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so grateful to be here with you and to be able to share all of this information with your listeners.
I love stories. So I teased the skydiving incident that you experienced. I want to start the show off with that story. Take us back and tell us a little bit about this skydiving accident that led to the work that you're doing today.
So my skydiving accident, I had been skydiving. I had over 70 skydives at the particular time of the accident, and it was actually the particular day was a few days past my 28th birthday. And for some reason, all my life, I thought I'm going to be dead at 28. And I don't know why I thought that, but I always thought I'm going to be dead at 28. And I lived appropriately. So that day, I was on the way to the airport, and it flashed in my mind. I was only maybe a mile or two away, and I was like, I wonder if today's the day. And, anyway, I had a brand new parachute at that time. I just got it. And it was at that time, this is back at the 80s, and it was a Ram Air, square and very, very high performance for that point in time. And this is relevant later on in the story as what happens. I was skydiving alone, as I usually would do, and the plane takes off and takes us up to 12,000 feet, and it was kind of a Lemony Snicket's type of situation. Everything perfectly aligned for everything to go wrong. We were in a fast plane that day, and that meant that if you don't hit your target when you jump out at the right time, you're going to be pretty far away from the airport. And there was a bunch of guys before me, and they were in the door ready to go, and they're like 1, 2, 3, and then they're like, no, let's regroup. And then they're 1, 2, and then again, oh no, we got to adjust our belt or something. And I was like, get out, and they were like still dilly-dallying in the door. Finally they go out, and you're supposed to wait in between when the other guys jump, and boom, I was out the door. right after them, and I put myself immediately into that delta. They call it a delta, where you're tracking across the sky. Your hands are down by your side, your head's forward, and it allows you to track across the surface of the earth. You can make progress like a wing across the surface of the earth. So I'm just there trying to get back to the airport, and it just wasn't working out. I at about 5,000 feet, I popped my parachute, which is way higher than the couple thousand feet usually, and I was just trying to get back because I could make more progress. I get down. I'm still a couple miles from the airport, and I see there's like a barbed wire fence, like cow pasture, barbed wire fence, and my calculation was if I did a quick turn, then what would happen is I'd end up on the good side of the fence, and not tear my parachute, tear my pants. I'd be climbing over a barbed wire fence. Nobody's with me. Nobody knows. But anyway, as it turns out, I did this turn, and I lost so much altitude because it was so incredibly fast. You literally, the parachute is below you. You're above it when you're flipping one of these turns, and I wasn't used to it. Anyway, I came out of it. I'm coming out of it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm too low. And I pulled to flare. Parachute collapsed. I basically fell about 700 feet, and broke my spine, broke my chest, broke my face, exploded my femur, which is the top part of your leg, and it spun and nothing left, and I ended up on the ground, and I was basically, I don't know how long I was out, but I was there, and eventually somebody found me. Spent about a month in intensive care and getting a lot of surgery, putting me back together, a lot of metal, and anyway, that was one of the major kind of injuries that I had suffered, during my existence, and there were others. Broke my neck bicycling, and had a few beers and snap, a lot of stupid moves, youthful indiscretions.
Man, that's like a little movie trailer right there. When you think about trauma, because I can only imagine the emotional toll that you had to go through just getting better. What was it like for you, just thinking back, the process of you realizing, okay, there's going to be a long road to recovery? How did you process that?
Well, I didn't really. The truth is, I had broken lots and lots of bones before. I had spent my entire life, from 6 years old, in martial arts, every type of martial art. Judo, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, taekwondo, everything I could do, that was my life. So, I banged it up a lot of times and broke a lot of bones and, different things, got knocked out, whatever. But I had never been hurt like this. And I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. But it took me about 7-8 years to get better. I just didn't feel good for about 7-8 years. They say it's like having cancer, that type of thing.
From your perspective, what do you believe really happens to the brain and nervous system when people are looping trauma? Because I can imagine things that might trigger those instances, and how that can kind of really mess with you. Just trying to get better and trying to have a semi-normal life.
The thing with trauma is that, trauma can be emotional or it can be physical. And the amazing thing here is that, there's a place called the Amen Clinics. Dr. Daniel Amen, I don't know if you've heard of him before. He was a radiologist turned psychiatrist, and basically radiologists do scans of the body, radiologically, of all kinds. And so when he became a psychologist, he started scanning the brains. He said, we're the only profession that doesn't look at the organ that they're treating. He discovered that an emotional injury and a physical injury look the same on a scan. It's unbelievable that it's quite physical. But the looping, what you had asked about, when you have traumas and looping, well, there's a reason why we loop, and it has everything to do with our eyeballs. And you're like, what does the eyeballs have to do with looping? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Everywhere you look is a different part of your brain. The easiest way that everybody can really relate to this is if I came on your show and I was looking like this, my eyes straight down, my head's forward, but my eyes are down. Maybe my head's a little bit down. What might you think about what I'm feeling?
Something. Something's going on.
Something's going on, and it ain't good. Maybe down, maybe depressed, disconnected a bit. Well, it turns out literally everybody knows this. Even a child knows it. That person, you can see it on their face. They're looking down. And they're looking down literally turns off the chemicals in the brain, like oxytocin. Oxytocin is the connection chemical when you feel good and you look somebody in the eye. It also turns off serotonin, another chemical which is going to make you feel good. So there's all of these. It's like electrical, meaning nervous system, and chemical. So when we look down, not only if I feel sad, I will look down, but if I look down, I will feel sad. So it works both directions. I did some really interesting research with the CDC and WHO and also the cell phone data. And as it turns out, the iPhone was introduced in 2007 or 8, and with the amount of hours per person that's being spent on the phone since 2000 and looking at the phone, and by the way, when you look at your phone, where do you look? You look down at your phone. Where do you look when you feel sad, when you feel disconnected? Down. So the amazing thing, this is mechanical. It's literally mechanical, like working a muscle. You're looking down and you'll feel depressed and also disconnected. There is two things that are super interesting, and that is when the phones came out in 2008 and to today, as the adoption went, so too went the actual diagnosis of depression and anxiety. So literally, as the per capita went up, it was perfect lockstep, one with the other. Number of hours, you look down, and depression and anxiety, and disconnection. And everybody's been feeling that, So the looping thoughts are relative to where do I spend my time looking? And I will continue to loop. If I am feeling a certain way, and I will, if I put my eyes in that position, the thought will just loop over and over. And the beautiful thing about this knowledge is that there's a way out. If you look up, it's the opposite. When you look up with your eyes, you will actually feel like this, what they call prefrontal cortex. This is the area of executive function. And what your whole program about is refocusing. When you look up, you get new ideas, inspiration. You know, whenever you see somebody worshiping in church, they're looking up. You know, their hands are folded and they're looking up in prayer and devotion. Or if and this is cross-culturally, you can look in Asia, you can look in the churches, you'll see the pictures of the saints. They're all looking up. They're utilizing this connection point. They're not down, they're not looking down. Anyway, the thing is that the refocusing is as simple as knowing where to move your eyes. When we're looking down, we're also at our phone is a very limited. You know, the phone is only 4 or 5 inches. You don't look to the left of the phone or the right. You're looking at the screen.
Yeah.
And it's about 8 to 9 hours a day for the average person.
This is so good. I had to jump in real quick because so many things are going off in my brain right now. But when you mentioned how small our phone device screen is compared to your point, if you actually look up, it's more real estate to look. It's more things to look at. It reminds me when you're driving a car, how dangerous is it if you not just glance at the rearview mirror too often, but if you keep your eyes locked in on that small mirror compared to the big windshield that's in front of you that allows you to see when the traffic light changes, to see when someone's coming in your lane. You know, it's so many things that you can see with the big windshield versus the small rearview mirror. It's so small.
That is a really good point. That is a really good point. And most of the time when you're looking in your rearview mirror, there's some sort of concern. You know, yeah. It's not a happy thought. You know, well, obviously there's relative stuff. You know, I got to make sure I'm changing lanes here or what's going on. But you know, what might be coming up behind me, you know, or whatever.
You can't stay there.
Yeah, you can't stay there. Yeah. Just a glance.
Once again, you listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Bill McKenna. You can go to his website, Cognomovement.com. And my next question is, you also talk about releasing the energetic charge of trauma. For our audience, can you unpack what that means for someone who's only experienced talk therapy? Oh,
well, this is really interesting because what we're talking about is not talking. It's not talking. So for all of us, we had a lot of things happen. You know, my upbringing, there was, it was filled with, beatings and alcoholism and abuse and, different things going on. I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to the experience. When you come from that background, you're on high alert, and you can feel it in your body. So these traumas actually are stored in our body, and we don't know how they're really affecting us in today's existence. So they could be literally anything that happened to us. But when you release these traumas from your body, you literally don't feel the way you used to feel anymore. The hypervigilance that you maybe experienced and you're focused on, like where's the threat, that goes away. But you still have discernment. There's a guy, I know what's up. But you're you're not in the hypervigilance mode, and you don't make bad decisions anymore. And those bad decisions are driven by what we call your subconscious. You know, I get a feeling, I think a thought equal to the feeling, and then I act according to that. That's the three ways us humans operate. And the thing that creates the feeling is your nervous system. So the nervous system is the subconscious. If you ever have any of your friends, you know, they go through cycles doing the same thing over and over. You know, maybe they're in the joint, not the joint. You know, they're in, they're out. You know, it's like, how don't you learn? Well, they've got a feeling in their body, and that feeling creates a certain thought, and then they'll act it out. And it doesn't matter whether it's drugs or ice cream. It makes no difference. You'll get a feeling and you'll act upon it, whether it's eating a pint of ice cream or you know, hitting the pipe or getting in a fight. You name it, it's all the same. But here's the cool thing. Once the feeling's gone, and here's the cool thing, you can do it. You can do this. And it doesn't take willpower. It just takes knowing how. And it's physical exercise, a physical exercise that you can do, and you're free. It's amazing. I'll use myself as an example. You know, I had no idea in the world where, you know, I talked about, you know, breaking a lot of bones, get skydiving accident, you know, breaking my neck, bicycling, and, you know, there were many, many other things I got into that I hurt myself. And I had no idea it was all rooted in the trauma and me resenting my father. And that ends up being turned on ourselves and hurting ourselves. And, you know, for some of us, we hurt ourselves by, you know, maybe there's a couple things that end us, you know, in the system. Or maybe it's a broken relationship. You know, I had the perfect girl, and then now some things happen, now I don't. Or maybe it's alcohol, drugs. It doesn't matter how it is that we self-sabotage, but it has to do with our roots, oftentimes in our mother and father. But it's kind of hard to know what to do. We can't even talk about it. You know, I can't even express and get it out there how I really feel. I know I feel something horrible about it all. Or like, if you're like me, I was just as dumb as a bag of rocks. I didn't know that there was any correlation. It's just my life. You know, this is my life, and things are hard, you know, and, you know, I busted up a lot, and, you know, I have financial good times, and then, you know, devastation or whatever. But there's a relationship there in between my past and all these things that I don't want. So
I like you said, because I think that was a great way to put it. There's a direct relationship between the past and I would say the present too, because my dad would say the bed you make, you have to sleep in. You know, like no one's gonna trade you beds. It's like you made it, you get to sleep in it. And what I'm getting from that is kind of funny. It's going into my next question about Cognomovement. When you think about mindset coaching and people who are trying to find that root problem that is a direct relationship to the dysfunction, if you will, or the problems that they have in the current space, what makes Cognomovement fundamentally different from approaches like meditation and mindset coaching?
That's a really, really good question. And, you know, I want to tell you a little story about how this is different. So I have a client, and this client is, in his 20s. Now, this client, he had road rage, like real bad. Eventually this is going to put him in the joint. If he doesn't get control over this road rage, something bad's going to happen. So this is the very first time I worked with him. He came to me, and this kid was kind of on the verge of being a pro athlete. But he had the physical skills necessary to be a pro athlete, but he had this road rage. He'd get in his car and he couldn't drive more than 20 minutes because he says it was all too much for him. Pretty bad. So he came in, and I knew about the road rage. I didn't say anything. His parents brought him into me, and they said, he doesn't want to talk about anything emotional, but he's willing to do the work with you. Okay. I asked him, hey man, if you walked out this door and I could help you with anything, what would it be? He says, my shoulder. All my life, my chest and my shoulder have been tight, and that's affecting my game. He wanted to be better at his sport. So, okay, what I did is I worked with him to physically release all of this, which he's an athlete, pro level, and he had never been able to let go of the chest and shoulder. And I worked with him with his eyeballs. Remember how I talked about everywhere you look is a different part of your brain? I found the damaged part of his brain. As it turns out, he slammed his head when he was 6 years old and got a brain injury. And nobody ever knew, and nobody ever really thought much of it. When we were kids, you bang it up, and hey, man, he's going to sleep it off for a few days, we're going to be fine, but nobody ever knew what to do. Anyway, what ended up happening is I got through his eyes, I got the whole shoulder to release. Saw him a week later, and we're saying, okay, because I was just approaching things from the athletic point of view, and I asked him, hey man, how was your week? And he said, you know what, my shoulder's feeling great, but I had this really weird thing happen. He said, my driving now, I don't have any stress driving. And this is amazing how, God, the universe works, or whatever you want to call it. But twice that week, he said, I got flipped off by two separate people. And he said, I looked over, and both times I looked at him and I was like, oh, I guess that person's having a bad day today. It was like, unbelievable. But what it was is that part of his brain came online. And what it makes it different is about Cognomovement. It's not talking. It is, in order for us to have a negative feeling, there's some sort of tension in the body somewhere. It's mandatory for our brain, when it has a negative thought, to have tension. The brain and the body work together. So with Cognomovement, we work with the brain and the body, and we cause these releases. And we also cause parts of the brain to gain function. And we build mental acuity and also physical performance all at the same time.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and watching us along, talking to our guest today, Bill McKenna. You can go to his website, cognomovement.com. Before we wrap things up, there's a lot of stuff that I want to respond to, but for the sake of time, my last question would be, to tie this all up, is that you've been able to work with thousands around the world with your research and what you do with your resources. What's one thing that you believe is a common thread when people start to get that aha moment, like that breakthrough moment? Have you seen any similar, like maybe relief or just, okay, before and after, I can have better control with intense situations? Like, how has that been able to look like for you?
I cannot even tell you how much joy this gives me, because it is so joyful to watch somebody go from like that kid who had the road rage into nothing. But what I see, here's what I see, is that it simply, things don't exist for them anymore. Even an insult is not even seen as a significant event that requires me to act. When we have a situation where, we might not really know that we have had a concussion or a brain injury. My business partner, Liz Larson, she asked me, "Hey, Bill, you ever had a brain injury?" And I said, "No, I hadn't." But meanwhile, I had been punched in the head, kicked in the head. I've been, you name it. I even was unconscious for, I don't even know how many hours, laying in a dirt field. But I didn't think, and I fractured my face. I didn't think I had anything. None of us think we do, but we do. If you played football, you got in a fight, you fell off your bike, it's enough to create a situation where we have a real problem. And we think about it in terms of it's a behavioral issue, but really we know from the Amen clinics that I talked about, it's a physical issue. And when the physical issue is done, what we notice is that refocusing is not done through effort. It's not even done through force of will. We're all taught, man, you gotta think different. You gotta act different. It's not possible for them because that part of the brain is offline. But when it comes online, it's so easy. The craving that you have goes away. The behavior goes away. You actually, the weird thing is you may see somebody else's point of view. Like, it seems like you're getting attacked before doing the work, and then all of a sudden after doing the work, it's like, oh, they're just asking me to, put the dishes into the dish strainer right there. No big deal. I can do that. It's all right. So that's what I see. What I see is progressive. I see people's lives taking off without having to be constantly monitoring, don't do that, do this. Or I know I shouldn't, I shouldn't drink that, but I can't help it. I'm just going to do it anyway. It all just kind of starts crumbling away, and you start acting different without trying.
It is very interesting because I talked to someone who was a former athlete, and he talked about the brain and how, its main job is let you know if something's going wrong in the body. You got pain, boom, it's going to scan, it's going to let you know right away, hey, something's not right, let's get this fixed or do something. Because at this point, the threshold has passed and something is going to keep tagging you that you're in pain until you address it. So everything I'm gathering, our conversation is kind of in parallel, and that is there are certain things we experience, and there is time and place where we have to get professional help or figure out what was causing that issue, what's causing that pain, what's causing whatever from back in the day to now. Yeah. But the blooming part that I find real awesome to notice is that there is also a time and place where you can heal. maybe it's not healing in a definition that is like rubber stamp for everybody, but maybe it's a unique healing that requires time and requires surrender, if you will. Because when you said look up, I also thought about in those moments, a lot of it is either I can't take anymore, so here I am. I have to surrender to the truth and reality, or is relief, like healing has started to take place and now I can receive what is meant for me in this lifetime, because now I'm not clinging to the past or anything that no longer serves me well.
Oh, that was really eloquently put. I'm gonna have to use that. That was well done. That I can't take it anymore, and I'm ready to surrender or receive now. Or I love that.
Well, once again, I know you have some gifts for our viewers and audience. For those who are tuning in on this episode, what's a resource that they can really appreciate because of your kind gesture?
There's 7 hours of this do-it-yourself. You can watch 7 hours of free sessions and follow along and do this yourself. And you'll start to learn how to rewire your own brain. And reality will shift all on its own. Go to cognomovement.com/beyond. That's cognomovement.com/beyond. And there you'll get 7 hours of do it yourself where you can start to rewire your life, and the refocusing of your life will no longer be a struggle. It'll just happen automatically.
Well, once again, you're listening to I'm Refocused Radio and watching us online. Like we always say when say to Bill, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you.